I'd like to introduce Chris Dyer. Chris is the founder and CEO of PeopleG2. He's also a well-known keynote speaker and a best-selling author, and he's here to discuss leading a hybrid team. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate everyone being here. Let me go ahead and I think I need, there's the share screen. Awesome. And we'll get this up and going here. So my plan for today is just to give you all sort of a quick hit, right? Just the down and dirty, easy things you should be thinking about in leading a hybrid team. So my organization has been 100% remote since 2009, and we really love working remote. We live and we breathe it, but we understand that's not going to be what everybody wants to do. And there's going to be hybrid work, there's going to be remote work, there's going to be flex work. And so it's really important that we think about, if we're going to be hybrid, if we're going to allow people to do some sort of a mixed environment, what does that mean and how can you be effective for your organization? Hybrid is really remote work in practice. So if you take everything that you've learned since the pandemic started, since maybe your organization went remote for the first time, you think about how everybody was on the Zoom calls or team calls. If you take those practices going forward and continue to implement them the same way, even though you may have 3 people in an office and 2 people at home for a particular meeting, what we don't want to do is have those 3 people sort of meeting as a sidebar in the, by the cubicles or in the hallways and leaving those other 2 people out. Really thinking through what, are those 3 people going in the office consistently going in the office, or are they just going in on 3 different random days? Are all 5 people from that team going in at different times, or is it some people are in the office and some people are not? So some people are remote and some people are not, and are you calling that hybrid? But if you just assume that everyone needs to be on a video call and everyone needs to be in front of their computer, or the people in the office need to be in a particular conference room, and then make sure they bring in those people from who are not in the office, and that all of the meetings happen, all the interaction happens the same way it would as if everyone was remote, you will find that your communication will go up significantly, that what we're sort of asking our people to do will be much easier. One of the most challenging, I think, scenarios is hybrid. Fully remote is easier than hybrid. Everyone in the office is easier than hybrid. So if you're saying, hey, we're going to do this hybrid thing, you do need to understand that this is probably one of the more challenging situations that you can be in. So we really want to make sure that we're thinking through this, we're pushing through this the right way, and that we are, again, considering our actions as if we're all remote. That is the best baseline that you can give your organization or give your team to be successful. Now, some practical things on what you should be thinking about doing. First, I would love for everyone to stop doing the annual survey, especially as we're remote, we're flexible, we're hybrid, all this is changing. It's really, really difficult to wait until the end of the year or once a year to really ask our people, how are things going, ask our organization how things are going. And instead, what I have reverted to as a remote leader is to ask one question every week. I change the question, every week. Sometimes I tell them it will be completely secret. I will never share the answers. I may share the sentiment of what I'm hearing, but never share the specific answers with anybody else. Other times I tell them, hey, whatever you answer, I'm going to share with everyone in the company. But I find asking one question every week allows me to make changes, take the temperature of my organization, really see where we're at, and then make very quick changes so that I'm not waiting a whole year to find out that people were upset about something. Given, I think, what we've been through, we're still seeing uncertainty about the future. We're still seeing that things can change. Throughout the world, there's been countries that are now having, deeply into the pandemic, or other countries are coming out of it. And so having that weekly survey can also help you make changes to what's happening at the ground level for your teams, especially if you have people spread across the world. I want to make sure that we're judging our people on impact, really measuring what matters. So I have found a lot of leaders realized that they were leading by what they could see. Were people at their desks? Were they, in lots of meetings? And that was how they judged their impact. When we're working hybrid and remote, we need to be very, very clear about what does success look like and what is it we expect from each of our different people, and be very, very clear about what that is. What are those KPIs? What are those goals? And that is how we measure people, not on how many meetings they're in, not on some other metric that doesn't really matter, right? How many dials did we see them make, or were they logged into the Slack system, for a certain amount of hours. Looking at impact, because what we'll find is our people will be able to change and ride those ebbs and flows. They'll maybe work a lot one week and a little bit less the next week, and really modify that, because if we're all on the same page about what the outcome is going to be, it's much clearer on how we can measure them and allow them to dictate and figure out their own work-life balance. One of the other areas that's super important for any hybrid workplace is to ensure that you know how we're going to celebrate wins. How are we going to say thank you? How are we going to, pat someone on the back? Maybe in your office when everyone was together, it was really easy. Maybe at lunchtime you celebrated everyone. Maybe on Fridays you bought pizza and we talked about what went well. Maybe you had a board in the lunchroom where you wrote something down that someone did great. If we're not all in the same place anymore, we need to recreate this really, really important signpost, this really important place where we say thank you and we celebrate each other. So make sure that you recreate this. Maybe it needs to be done as the first thing you do on any standing team meeting every week or every day. Figure out where that belongs and make sure that you have recreated it, that you don't forget this, you don't let this slide, because saying thank you and celebrating wins are really an essential part of what motivate people, what make them happy, and will help them be more productive in the long run. And then make sure we continue to talk about how work will be different. As I mentioned before, we're still seeing some variability, some unpredictability throughout the world marketplace. Really be sure that we continue to talk about this. If you're saying that hybrid work is going to be at least 3 days a week in the office, and then you're going to modify that maybe in a few months to 2 or maybe to 4, we should be talking about that in advance, up front, and it should not come as a surprise to our people. Let them be a part of that conversation. Continue to talk about that. And don't be afraid to change your mind. Don't be afraid to say, well, I thought we were going to go to 4, but it really seems like 3 is working. Let's leave it at 3 days a week in the office. Go ahead and be open and transparent about that. You don't have to have all the answers, and it's okay to set it up for, hey, we may change this. Things may happen in the marketplace with guidances from the CDC or ordinances by the city or where our people live. We may have to be flexible here. And so this is what we know now. This is what we're going to do now, but it may change. The other really important thing that you want to do if you have people in groups and you have people that are, especially some people at home and some people in the office, is to stop having one-on-one meetings. Of course, there are some one-on-one meetings you have to have, but in general, if you can make it a practice that in most of the time when you meet that you bring in multiple people. Hey, if 2 people are the only people that really need to talk and this is about a client or something, that's maybe going to be a Slack message or an email. But if we're going to get together to think and collaborate and brainstorm, we should pull in all the people, 5 to 7 max, that would be involved with that client to be able to contribute, to understand, to communicate, to move information around the organization very quickly. If instead you have a one-on-one meeting, but then you don't tell the other 4 people on the team what the 2 of you talked about or decided, it creates these huge gaps of knowledge, and it slows your team down. If you think about in a traditional office, if the 2 people met, it may get around the office very quickly what was decided. There may be those hallway conversations or cubicle conversations. That's not happening anymore. So we have to be more disciplined in how we meet so that we can move information around in a much better way. Also, if you're having one-on-one meetings all the time, I find that most senior leaders are telling me they do not have any time to get anything done during the day because they're meeting all the time. And what we've done is gone back and coached them to remove as many of these one-on-one meetings as possible, turn them into team meetings, turn them into group meetings, and they have been able to double their productivity. They've been able to cut down the amount of hours they're working significantly because they're not having 15 one-on-ones throughout the week. which are just, I don't want to say waste of time, but they're just not productive. They're not going to be the way scalable for you as a leader moving forward in a hybrid environment. I also want to stop having long video meetings. So, most of our meetings in my organization are 15 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. We do have longer meetings, but we add in breaks. We might go 45 minutes on and 15 minutes off if we have to have a longer, more strategic meeting. But we're not meeting for long periods of time. That is draining. It's exhausting. People have a much harder time being on video for long periods of time than they do on a regular telephone call. So really curate your meetings to be more intentional and a little bit shorter. It'd be better to have 2 30-minute meetings in a day on the same topic than one 1-hour meeting. And then really think about curating your meetings. And I would say the starting point of any great curated meeting is that all meetings should be starting on time. If your meetings are not starting on time, you have a real cultural problem. You have an issue. And if leaders are showing up late, they're telling the rest of the organization, I don't care about your time. My time is more important than yours. And I don't really care about money either, because I don't really care that I paid all these people to sit here and wait for me to show up. It sends the absolute wrong message. So starting meetings on time should be the most critical thing you do for any great meeting. And then ending early. There's actually a fascinating cognitive bias or brain trick called Parkinson's law. And that means if you take a set amount of time to do something, it tends to take you that amount of time to do it. If we plan to clean the garage for an hour this weekend, we tend to take an hour to do it. If we were to give ourselves the goal of ending early, we could move faster, we could ask for help, we could hire the neighborhood to help us move stuff around, right? There's ways for us to move faster and get more done if we think about squishing the amount of time that we have to do it. So it should be your goal on every meeting with your team to end early. Give them the gift of time. You will notice they will move faster, they'll be more succinct, there'll be less chit-chat about things that don't matter, and there'll be less bringing in other issues that weren't originally on the agenda if everyone has the goal of ending early. And then, of course, no agenda, no meeting. If you send me a meeting request in my organizations and there's not an agenda in there, I immediately decline. I need to know what we're meeting about. I need to know what you intend to think about, what we're going to talk about, so I can be prepared. We can invite other people to the meeting, maybe change who's going to be in the meeting if who's been invited isn't the right person. It's really, really important that we give people that time to think about what they need to do to be ready. A pet peeve of mine is showing up to a meeting only to find out that we're having a meeting to talk about, the things we have to do to be ready to have the actual meeting we want to have. There's no reason why we can't be prepared in advance. By doing this and talking about some of these things, we actually end up having less meetings over the long term by being more prepared for our actual meetings that we're going to have. Now, there's a couple things that I think work really, really well inside a hybrid environment. The first is to make sure that we say yes. We want to try to say yes to every question that's asked of us. Now, yes and yes but, really, really important that we have those qualifiers to help us. But when we don't have the physical body language to read, we can't really see what people are thinking or, kind of pick up on other subtle cues. If we are asking, hey, can we go try this thing? The answer is always no. We get to high frustration levels, and we're not able to have those maybe other side conversations we might have with other people to try to figure out how to get something done. So great leaders say yes, and then discuss it, and try to figure it out, and try to help their team get from point A to point B instead of saying no. The next thing we want to do is really think about having better meetings. And I talked about curating our meetings, but inside of our meetings there are some really cool things that we can do. And then I'll be kind of wrapping it up here. But any meeting that's 30 minutes or longer, I highly suggest that you take on this practice of bonding. And what this means is when we show up to a meeting, we ask everyone to go around the room and say, how are you showing up today? And we only do this once a day. You don't do this multiple times a day. Well, at least once a day, everyone on the team is answering this question. This is about me, the person, right? I'm doing great, or I didn't sleep well last night, or my wife was sick, or we have a brand new puppy that kept us up all night. Like, how are you showing up? And then at the end of the meeting, how is everyone leaving the meeting? And this tends to be a bit more business focused. Jesus, was a good meeting. I really understand now. Or, wow, I'm really confused. I don't think our clients are going to like this solution. It tends to be more about what we talked about. some really, really important things we want to do is make sure that we let our team go first and that senior leaders in that meeting go last. Because if I show up as the CEO and say, wow, I'm so excited to be in this meeting, and someone else says, just found out their grandmother passed away, they're probably not going to share with me that they're struggling because I'm showing up and saying how awesome I'm doing. This is a super important point. Leaders need to go last. The other thing leaders need to do if they really want to be emotionally intelligent here is to, if they hear their team is struggling, if they see one or two people are articulating they're having a problem right now and they're maybe not really ready for the meeting, don't have the meeting or excuse them for the meeting, right? This is a way for us to pick up, maybe my team isn't really jiving today. Maybe we can hold off on this till tomorrow, or maybe this afternoon we can pick up. If they're really overworked and they have a deadline, and here I am asking them to have this meeting about something that doesn't matter right now, we can postpone. It is so powerful when I have postponed meetings and say, guys, I don't think we should meet right now. I'm hearing a lot of stress. Why don't you guys go back, take this time that you had booked to work on whatever you need to work on, or take a little time for yourself. And that has been just so well received. People they can't believe that, right? And they go, we have lots and lots of meeting types at my organization. I thought I would share just one with you really quick, and we use this one all the time. It's called a Cockroach meeting. It's a small problem. It's a single issue. And so anytime we want to meet for 15 minutes or less with 5 to 7 people on a single issue, we call a Cockroach meeting. Starts on time, it ends early, single issue, and we always focus on one thing only. But the other thing is it's important to remember that it is optional for you to attend. So if you're invited, you don't have to go. It's optional, and anyone in the organization can call it. Anyone can invite anybody. But this is about, I had this one problem. How do I get unstuck? I could spend 3 hours trying to research on the internet. I could have 15 one-on-one calls, or I could just get 5 people together to say, help me really quick. Just help me through this one thing. Do this 5-minute favor for me and help me get unstuck. It is so powerful, and it is one of the more I think intuitive things you can do in any hybrid or remote companies to give people the ability to go out and get answers and use the resources in the organization effectively and efficiently. All right, if you're interested in learning more, I have a lot of an entire leadership program on how to be a hybrid or remote leader. If you're interested in that, we also have a Slack community. So if you'd like to join the Slack community and ask questions and get answers from experts, it's totally free. And anyone is invited to be a part of that Slack group. You can go there to apply. And my new book is there. So if you're interested in checking that out on Amazon or wherever you buy your books, welcome to do that. If there's any questions or if not, then I appreciate you having me here today.